Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. It is Friday. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is Nick Wright. Chris Canty is joining us today. What's going on, Chris?
Nothing much.
I want to do it too. What up?
See, I got my purple on for the Baltimore Ravens.
I saw that.
Big trust.
Guess what?
You didn't think about that.
5 touchdowns from the future MVP, Lamar Jackson.
Clearly, it worked.
Well done, Canty.
It worked. Great football weekend coming up for us to talk about, kicked off by another great showing from Lamar Jackson last night. That's where we start today. It is why Mr. Canty's wearing purple. Thursday Night Football. Don't you have a green tie on, Nick? Jets in Baltimore to face the Ravens. Baltimore's opening drive, 8th play. Lamar breaking Michael Vick's single-season rushing record with a 5-yard run. Just the beginning of an incredible night for the MVP frontrunner. He tossed 5 touchdowns. He accounted for 298 yards as the Ravens win, clinching the AFC North for the second straight season. After the game, Aaron Andrews let Mark Ingram interview Lamar. Take a listen.
Freaky L, a.k.a. Action Jackson, a.k.a. Era A Apparel. Listen, my dog. Hey, Judo, hit him. Hey, crank. All right, L. Man, you broke Mike Vick's rushing record, man. You the AFC North champions for the second year in a row. How I feel, man? Tell me how I feel, L Freaky.
It feel good, but you know we got a lot of season left to play, and we got 2 more banners to hang up. And
So you telling me the story unwritten?
Unwritten right now.
Book unfinished.
Right.
Congratulations, brother, on breaking Mike's Vick record and being the GOAT, the MVP that you are.
Love Mark Ingram, and he's having a phenomenal season behind the mic. But for Lamar Jackson, yes, the season's not done. It's been an incredible, 15 weeks of football for him this year. Why do you think, Nick, so many people missed on Lamar Jackson when he was coming out of school?
It's a multitude of reasons, and first of all, I'd like to congratulate Lamar because he won the MVP. To me, he's no longer the front runner. He is now the MVP winner. There is nothing that could happen in the final 2 weeks of the season to change that, and he'll probably only have to play one of those weeks because they win next week, they lock up the 1 seed, and they can rest in week 17 if that's what they choose to do. But there is going to be, and we're already starting to see it, some significant revisionist history on what was and wasn't said about Lamar leading into the draft. Folks have tried to create the narrative that Bill Polian was the only person who said maybe he should work out at wide receiver. I went back today. Everyone can do this. Set your little Google machine to the dates, the 60 days leading up to the draft. So from the early parts of the spring of 2018 until the day before the draft, type in Lamar Jackson and read the articles. It was teams asking him to work out at other positions. It was multiple supposed experts questioning his height, his weight, even though he's 6'2" and 215. He's the same size as Andy Dalton, which nobody questioned his size coming out of school. He's the average, slightly below average, I would say, height-wise NFL quarterback, a little bulkier than the average NFL quarterback. And it wasn't even just the position stuff. It was vague attacks on character as far as does he know what he's doing as far as having his mother be his agent. NFL teams supposedly could not get in contact with him. He was not returning phone calls. And it all created a narrative that led to the guy who's going to be maybe the unanimous MVP in year 2 being the final pick of the first round. And so why did it happen? Well, I think there were some agents that wanted to get a narrative out against him because he was bucking the system. I think there were some teams who did not want to believe the film at Louisville, which was over 7,000 yards passing his final 2 years, 57 touchdowns passing his final 2 years. And I think it was some of, is he really the face and the voice of a franchise quarterback that we heard leading up to all of it, which led to guys such as Josh Allen being a consensus top 10 pick and Lamar being available for Baltimore with the final pick of the first round.
Well, you make some valid points with that, but I think all the criticisms of Lamar Jackson go back to the conventional wisdom that you can't win with a quarterback that trusts his legs more than he trusts his arms. Now, I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson was that at Louisville. I'm just saying in terms of what they project to be at the next level, people are concerned about the longevity that you're going to be able to get from that guy, because if you routinely put yourself in harm's way, if you get outside of the pocket, NFL defenders are going to punish you. And the question is whether or not Lamar Jackson, with his slight frame, was going to be able to hold up. But you have to credit the Baltimore Ravens for being willing to buck the trends, being willing to take the risk, and then build an offense around Lamar Jackson. And now you're seeing that pay dividends. I mean, what they did in terms of being able to have a 3 tight end oriented offense where you have Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, and Nick Boyle, not only as guys that can be inline blockers, but actual viable options in the passing game, it makes that offense impossible to match up with personnel-wise on the defensive side of the ball, and that's what makes their rushing attack so lethal.
And give Lamar some credit, too, not just for the system they put around him, but for Lamar to know that, hey, I need to bulk up a little. I need to put more weight on if this is the kind of athlete I'm going to be in the NFL. And he came back this season, worked hard, really worked on his passing game, which people said, hey, do you even want to pass? Do you want to pass the ball? Or do you even want to run? Worked on all elements and all aspects of his game. So now he's got his team in this fantastic position, and you wonder, would it be a disappointment now if this complete team doesn't make the Super Bowl?
Oh, I think it would. I think if they don't make the Super Bowl, it will mean they either only win 1 or 0 playoff games, and it will mean they lose a home playoff game. They are in the exact same position my hometown Kansas City Chiefs were in last year. The runaway MVP at quarterback in year 2, the #1 seed in your conference, and the Chiefs season last year ended in disappointment because they got this close to the Super Bowl and didn't get there. So to me, if they get to the Super Bowl and lose, they will be disappointed. I do not think the season would be a disappointment because you get there, there's some great teams in the NFC. There's no home field advantage in the Super Bowl, obviously. But if they fail to make it to the Super Bowl, Canty, at this point, that would be a disappointing year because they're going to be the 1 seed, because they have the league MVP, and because aside from the loss of their center, they are relatively healthy across the board on this team. So yes, to me, the answer is a clear-cut yes. Failing to make the Super Bowl for this year at this point, for this team at this point, would be a major disappointment.
Well, it would be a disappointment just because we've seen them play well against top-quality competition. Yep. I mean, they beat the New England Patriots. They mauled them at M&T Bank Stadium a couple of weeks ago. And then the win that they had against the San Francisco 49ers was a really impressive one, beating Seattle on the road. That's not easy to do. So, yeah, based on what they've done in terms of their performance against quality competition, you would assume that that would be able to translate into the playoffs and they would be able to have success. But, Jenna, even if they don't get to and win the Super Bowl, their window is wide open. Why? Because you have a quarterback that you can build your team around. Your quarterback, if he's a difference maker, allows you to have sustained success. Now, the only question mark about Lamar Jackson is not whether he can win from the pocket, because we've seen him do that. The only question is whether or not he's going to be able to stay healthy. And I think so far, based on him and what he's been able to do running the football and not taking a lot of big shots, you have to feel pretty good about his ability to be available for his team moving forward.
Yeah, that shot he took on the run where he broke Mike Vick's record,
Neville Hewitt,
is one of the bigger shots you've seen him take all year long. He's been very good at avoiding those big shots, even though he doesn't run away from contact. And I totally agree. Their window is wide open, but they need to look no further than the team I used as an example a moment ago, Kansas City. Kansas City last year was 12-4, and the road to the playoffs went through Arrowhead and they had a bye. This year they're going to be 12-4, and if the seeding stays as is, they're going to start the playoffs in the wild card weekend as the 3 seed and then be on the road in the second round and most likely the third round. So you can have a back-to-back great seasons. Taking advantage of that 1 seed that they have all but locked up is critical. That's why I think for them it's incumbent to make the Super Bowl this season.
All right, Baltimore Ravens beat the Jets, so the AFC North champs. They've won 10 in a row. John Harbaugh said after the game, it's our first goal, it's not our top goal. So they obviously have a lot they want to still accomplish this season. All right, moving on. Sunday, Fox, 4:25 p.m. We got a big game for you. Rams in Dallas to face the Cowboys. Could be a get-right game for Dallas if they can get out of their own way. Rams have won 2 straight. Cowboys have lost 3 straight. Dak Prescott knows just how important this game is for his team.
I mean, we got to get a win. Yeah, we've got to get a win, and we got to play well. Simple as that. I mean, yeah, according to the playoffs and all that, it doesn't, I guess. But if we want to give ourselves a chance to win, and to win as we finish this season out, and to win in that tournament as you get there, you've got to get momentum going. And momentum is something serious. We can get it on our side. This has been a streaky team in years. So you got to get that first one to get the second one. That's kind of just the mindset of focus on the day. Let's focus on now. Let's focus on this week. I'm not worried about the rest, and we will when that comes.
A lot of words out of Dak there. What do you want to see, Chris Canny, from the Cowboys to make you believe they can go on a deep playoff run? Is there anything they can do to make you believe that?
Well, a good place to start is being able to beat a team with a winning record. So far, they're 0-for with teams above 500. And, the Los Angeles Rams present an opportunity for the Cowboys to do that in their building in Arlington this Sunday. So I guess that's what I'm looking for them to be able to put together a complete performance top to bottom in this game. But, Nick, as bad as the Dallas Cowboys have been playing, losing 3 straight, being 6-7, second week of December, this is still not a game that the Cowboys have to win.
And that's a key point.
Explain
that to people. That is a key point.
This is a game that the Rams have to win. For them, the playoffs have already started now. Good on them. They've won 3 of the last 4. But the Cowboys, because the Eagles are 6-7 and the Cowboys beat the Eagles earlier in Dallas, it's a situation where all they have to do is be able to go on the road in Week 16, beat the Eagles in Philadelphia, and then beat the Washington Redskins. If they can do that, they're going to be NFC East champs. Now, the Los Angeles Rams don't have that luxury. They're chasing the Minnesota Vikings for that second wild card in the NFC. And I really look at it as a situation where they have to win out, and they need some help from the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to need them to lose 1 of 3 games. I think they're on the road against the Chargers. Yep. And then they've got division opponents. They got the Bears and the Packers. So we'll see what happens with that. But, right now for the Dallas Cowboys, you just want to see a solid performance from that team top to bottom. Offense, defense, special teams, complementing one another. But Nick, I don't have any evidence that they're going to be able to do that this Sunday.
I totally agree with you. I think your point that the Cowboys don't need this game is a critical one. They can't improve whether they win the division at 7-9 or at 9-7. They're the 4 seed either way. All that matters to them is the Eagles game, and then the Washington game is more important than the Rams game, because if they end up splitting with the Eagles, it's about divisional records, so tiebreakers and things like that. And if you know that, and if I know that, they know that. And this is not a Cowboys team that, to me, has shown any ability where if they know this game is not quite as important, but doesn't matter, every game is just as important, we're going to focus on the Patriot mantra of on to Cincinnati. Cowboys don't have, to me, that mental fortitude. They haven't shown it. So I do think it's important that they don't need the game as far as how I expect them to play. But to answer your question, Jenna, Cowboys can win this game 45-0. They won't, but if they win this game, they could win this game 45-0. And I would not believe they are Super Bowl contenders. You are what you are through the first 13 games of the season. It might be a mirage through 4 weeks. Maybe it's a mirage through 8 weeks. And I know last year the Cowboys argued, well, look at who we were the final 8 weeks of the season. Yeah, understand, I get it. But you also, in the playoffs, showed you weren't exactly who you were the final 8 weeks of the season when you struggled in the first round against a Seattle team that had no game plan offensively whatsoever and then got beat handily by the Los Angeles Rams. So I do not believe in this Cowboys team. One game against a Rams team that I also think is a good but not far from a great team is not going to change my opinion of it. And I don't think what we're going to see from the Cowboys, what you see from teams at times when they know their coach is on the hot seat, which is, let's win this. Let's show the world we still love our coach. Let's show the world we got Jason Garrett's back. They've had the opportunity for that since the Patriots game, because that's when Jerry Jones put the real pressure on Jason Garrett. And how did they respond the next 2 weeks? By folding in games against inferior competition, allegedly inferior competition, where they had 7-0 leads. So, no, I don't believe the Dallas Cowboys all of a sudden are going to put it together and look like the team we thought they could be in September.
Kenny, what do you think the message has been or is to players this week in that Dallas locker room? What do you think the consensus is with what the management and what coaches and everything is saying to these guys before they lead up to this Sunday's game?
Well, the players are just trying to figure out why we can't win with all the talent that we have on this roster. Coming into this year, we said it, the Dallas Cowboys are one of the most talented teams in the National Football League. So why are they underachieving? Why are we sitting here at Week 15 with them having a sub-500 record? Well, the only thing that you can point to is the coach. I mean, at some point, if your team is not playing up to the expectations, you have to look at coaching and seeing whether or not Jason Garrett is putting his players routinely in positions to be able to do what they do best. And the Cowboys, for whatever reason, haven't executed. Now, I hate to put all of this at the feet of the head coach, but that's where you have to start, Nick. It has to start with Jason Garrett. And so with Jerry Jones having Jason come into the season as a lame duck coach, you were trying to figure out whether or not this team would be able to respond and answer the question of whether or not Jason Garrett could coach this team at the highest levels, get into the playoffs and win some playoff games and compete for championships. And to this point in this season, we don't have anything tangible to point to say that Jason Garrett is capable of doing that. This team is 0-6 against teams that are over 500. When you get to the playoffs, you're going to be playing against teams with a winning record. So I just don't see the Dallas Cowboys as that team. And we have to point to Jason Garrett as the reason why this team hasn't realized expectations.
And Jason Garrett deserves the lion's share of the blame, and he's going to get fired at the end of the year. But it also should be noted the last few weeks that Dak Prescott MVP contender season has gone off the rails a bit. Scored 9 points against the Patriots, and I understand the Patriots are an extraordinary defense. You got up 7-0 on Buffalo, the offense goes into hibernation. You get up 7-0 on Chicago, the offense goes into hibernation. That's problematic. Dak against teams with a winning record this year, 8 touchdowns, 7 picks, and a passer rating below 85. Going into this year, I had the Cowboys missing the playoffs, despite all the talent, because I didn't believe in the coach and I didn't believe in the quarterback. Now, Dak has been better than I thought he would be going into this season over the course of the entire season. But the last few weeks, he has not been. He needs to play his best game against a good team. People can say, oh, look at his numbers against Green Bay. Yeah, against Green Bay, once they were down 31-3, Dak started absolutely dealing. But that didn't really count, and it doesn't really matter. And so you need Dak to play the way he has played against the awful opponents, against a good opponent this week. And that Rams team, by the way, since the acquisition of Jalen Ramsey, that pass defense gotten a little bit better, even though they shipped out Marcus Peters, who's been exceptional with Baltimore. I'd like to see how Dak plays, because that, to me, is more important for the Cowboys than whatever happens the rest of this season. You're going to pay Dak an astronomical amount of money this offseason. How good is he? It was always Dak versus Wentz was the debate. Well, both these guys, Wentz underachieved this year. Dak underachieved, I would argue, last season. Is that really a worthwhile debate if neither one of them is a top 12 quarterback in football? And that's the question. Dak was playing like it. He hasn't the last month.
Maybe we all misjudge just how talented this Dallas Cowboys team really is. All right, let's get back to last night's game. Thursday Night Football, Ravens beating the Jets. Along the way, Lamar Jackson breaking Michael Vick's single-season rushing record for a quarterback. He also showed off his arm, throwing 5 touchdown passes, giving him 33 on the year. That ties Vinny Testaverde's team record. Lamar talked about the passing mark after the game, said he was proud of it, but as he does with everything else, kind of shied it off and said we've got something much bigger to worry about here. Nick, which is the more impressive feat? The rushing record or the passing touchdown record for Lamar?
To me, it's definitely the rushing record. And I know some might say, and I don't know what Kenny's going to say, that because there were questions about his ability to throw the football, it should be the passing mark. But a few things here. One is Lamar's passing touchdowns have been really inflated by him being exceptional against awful teams. First game of the year, I think his third 5-touchdown game of the year. And that's not taking anything away from him. It's simply saying that the bad teams have had no ability to stop them in either direction. But the rushing mark has come against everybody. He has been effective running the football. You play the Niners, no problem. I'll run on them. Play Seattle, I'll run on them. New England, I'll run on them. And so his ability to week in, week out, avoid the big hit. I understand on the oddly enough, ironically, if you will, the play he set the record on. He took a shot now, but he typically does just what you're seeing right there. Get as many yards as he can and then beat you to the sideline. That's where the speed's so great. Get as many yards as you can, beat you to the sideline, avoid the big hit, and beat a record, Canny, that I would have thought was close to unbreakable. Because Mike Vick, at that point, when he set that record, was the player people alleged Lamar was going to be. A running back playing quarterback who occasionally throws the football. To have that record in a season where he also is likely to lead the entire NFL in touchdown passes, those two things in unison, to me, are spectacular. But that rushing record will stand for years and years and years unless he breaks it himself moving forward. So to me, that's the more impressive feat.
No, it has to be the rushing record. I mean, when you look at throwing 30 touchdown passes in a season, if you're a quality quarterback, if you're a top 10 quarterback, and you're healthy for the entire year, you're probably going to throw right around 30 touchdown passes. So I don't think that's as impressive, especially in today's game. When Vinny T did it in '96, it was a different game. In terms of the rules now, the way that the receivers can be impacted by defenders, I mean, you're limited in terms of your options to neutralize the passing game. But as far as quarterbacks go running the football, once that quarterback gets outside of the pocket, you can treat him like a running back by and large. And the fact that Lamar Jackson has over 1,100 yards rushing, that's just unbelievable.
Insane. It should be impossible.
It should be.
He could have, if he were to play, I don't know if he's going to play the full season, but if he has to play, the fact that it's on the board that we could have a quarterback with a 1,300-yard rushing season, which is most years good enough to be top 5 rushing for the entire NFL. It seems it's Madden-esque. I know we've talked about his Madden speed rating, and Mike Vick was very funny. Mike Vick said, "I don't mind him beating my rushing record. I don't like that he beat my speed rating in Madden." They're Madden numbers in real life is what we're seeing.
But given what we thought about Lamar Jackson coming into this season, how impressive is the throwing mark, is the passing mark, is the touchdown mark, the fact that he will throw the ball sometimes before running it?
Well, to me, that's the most impressive part, and the fact that he can actually win from the well. He can throw the ball down the field with accuracy from the pocket. You saw him do it last night on the Marquise Brown touchdown throw and the Seth Roberts touchdown throw, which was 2nd and 20. Jenna, the fact that he's capable of doing that now, defenses don't have any good answers in terms of how to defend Lamar Jackson. If you line up and you play zone coverage, well, guess what? He's got the football IQ now to know where the holes are and the ability to throw the ball with accuracy in those tight windows. And if you're in man coverage, well, now you have another issue because you have defenders running with their backs turned. If he takes off, guess what? It's going to be an explosive play in the run game. So, I mean, there are no good ways to defend a quarterback with the athletic ability that Lamar Jackson has, coupled with the football IQ. And now you've seen him clean up some of the issues that he's had with his delivery, his footwork within the pocket. I mean, he's the most dangerous threat that we have at the quarterback position right now.
It's impressive. I don't find it that surprising. I thought the narrative at the end of last season was far too colored by the playoff game. He was awful for 3 quarters in the playoff game, no denying it. But during the season, Warren Sharp, who's one of the smartest football people out there, did a great job breaking it down. His numbers compared favorably to rookie quarterbacks historically just passing, remove the running. I watched him at Louisville. That is a pro-style offense from Bobby Petrino. Let's pretend he never ran the football. So take away over his final 2 years, his 3,000 yards rushing and his 39 rushing touchdowns. The year he won the Heisman, he threw for 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. Threw for him. He followed that up by throwing for 3,600 yards and 27 touchdowns. His completion percentage was like 2% lower than you would have liked it to be, given the number of drops and the quality of receivers. He needed to clean up the accuracy a bit. And by the way, he still needs to clean up the accuracy a bit. But I thought the narrative coming in that this guy is just an athlete has always been wrong. And his mom, who got so much criticism for being his agent, read the stories about when he was in high school. They tried to send him back to return a punt. His mom said, "No, you are not." They tried to have him play safety on a Hail Mary. "No, you are not." His mom's been right about this all along. My son's a quarterback, and he can throw the damn football, and he's showing it every week, which to me makes the rushing record all the more impressive because Vic, as much as I really respect what Vic accomplished, when he set that rushing record, he couldn't throw the football. Not like this. He had a great deep ball, but he was not the passer he was in Philly. He was running out of necessity. Lamar's running as one of the arrows in his quiver, which makes it so impressive.
Talk about the Patriots now. They've dropped 3 of their last 5 games, something we're not used to saying about this New England team. Well, this Sunday, they're on to Cincinnati, and Tom Brady isn't taking the Bengals lightly. He knows how important this game is.
I know it hasn't all been perfect, but we're in a decent position. We're at 10-3, and we have the biggest game of the year coming up this coming week. So every year has its adversity, its challenges, and this year we've had our fair share, but that's what makes you tougher. That's what makes you more mentally tough, certainly.
Kenny, I know they're playing the Bengals. I know the Bengals have one win. But do the Patriots need to go out there and absolutely dominate this Cincinnati team for you to feel good about them moving forward?
Well, Jenna, even if they dominate this Bengals team, I'm not going to feel like the Patriots have figured out all of their problems. I'm not going to feel like that offense is finally turning the corner. The Bengals are statistically one of the worst defenses in the National Football League. But in the last 4 games, they've played a lot better. They haven't allowed an opponent to score over 20 points. But in looking at the issues that the Patriots have had on the offensive side of the ball, even if N'Keal Harry has a big day or Jacoby Myers has a big day, Philip Dorsett produces in the passing game, I'm still not going to feel like the Patriots have answered all of the questions that we have, because I want to see them do it against quality competition. Because for the Patriots, it's not about being able to get into the playoffs. It's about competing for championships, especially in the twilight of Tom Brady's career. So I think that the one thing that can come out of this game as a positive for that Patriots team and for Tom Brady and that offense specifically is those young guys being able to build some confidence. If they can go out there and be productive, maybe that confidence can carry over into the games that they got coming up against, division opponents in the Buffalo Bills and
they play the Jets. The Dolphins.
The Jets and the Dolphins. Yeah, exactly. The division opponents. So if they can do that and create some momentum moving toward the playoffs, then I think that would be a good sign. But I don't think they can answer any questions definitively with this game on Sunday.
If they were playing the Bills, I think they could. Because the Bills have been proven to be a good team, and the Bills gave them trouble the first time they played. But because they're playing the worst team in football, unfortunately for the Patriots, this is a game where the only headlines that can come out are bad. If they beat the Bengals 30-0, is anyone going to say, okay, New England's back?
No.
No. We have seen them annihilate bad teams. They beat Miami by 43. They beat the Jets by 16 and 33. They beat Washington by 26. They beat the Giants by 21. We know that this defense alone can force awful teams into where the defense will outscore the opposing team's offense by itself, and then the offense can lean on you and make the margin decisive at the end. So as long as New England comes out of this game healthy, that's healthy as they go into it, that's all you want to look for in this game. I don't think you can build on anything in a game like this against this type of opponent. I also don't want to give New England credit, because almost no matter who they were playing this week, it would be hard to predict a loss, because this is a number that was sent to me yesterday, and then I verified it. Boston Sports Info tweeted it out. Days since their last losing streak of 3 games or more. Quarter of the league is on one right now. So for a quarter of the league, the answer is 0. Here's your top 4. The Kansas City Chiefs are number 4. They've gone 739 days since they've lost 3 in a row. The New Orleans Saints is 3rd. They've gone a little over 800. The Minnesota Vikings are 2nd. They've gone a remarkable 1,100 days since a 3-game losing streak. The New England Patriots have gone 6,225 days since they had a 3-game losing streak. The last 3-game losing streak they had was the 0-2 season when they had that swoon that cost them their playoff spot as defending Super Bowl champions. As critical as I've been about where the Patriots are right now, this is not a team that has a bad month of football as far as they might look bad for a month, but they don't lose 3 games in a row. They haven't in nearly 20 years. So no matter who they were playing, you would expect them to win. The fact that they're playing the single worst team in football, and they might have a little scouting edge. I don't know. There were some things going on this week. I'm not
Stop it, man. Stop
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It's what people are saying. And so, no, I expect the Patriots to look like they've looked against awful teams all year, which is dominant.
Back here, first things first, we're now joined by former Pro Bowl running back Brian Westbrook.
What up, B?
Good
morning. Good morning,
Brian.
Big time.
Stayed
nice
up late.
to see you.
Watched the Sixers beat up on the Celtics last night.
Watch anything else?
I watched a little bit of the football game.
A little football, that's good.
A little football, yeah.
Talk to you about that a little bit. Let's talk about your former team, though. First, Brian, the Philadelphia Eagles, they face Washington Sunday, 1 Eastern on Fox. So Philly's offense has been decimated with injuries, but quarterback Carson Wentz says that doesn't mean he has to carry the team. Brian Westbrook, is Wentz right that it's not on him and him alone to carry this Eagles team right now?
Well, no, he's wrong. I think that it is up to him to carry this team. And I think when you pay a quarterback $100+ million guaranteed money, that's what you expect. You expect him to be able to carry your football team, and that's without the injuries. That's with Deshaun Jackson and Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey. You still want Wentz to be able to carry the football team. And so now without those guys, he definitely has to be able to carry them. I think you're certainly going to need some help from that defensive side of the ball. But Carson Wentz's job is to carry this football team. He's not the point guard. He's a scoring guy. He's a guy that needs to get 25, 30 points a game. He has to be that guy, especially if this team wants to try to make it into the playoffs and then go further into the playoffs.
Well, B-Dub, I think Colin Cowherd puts it brilliantly when he says there are tractors and there are trailers. And when you're paying a guy $34 million a year, he has to be a tractor. That being, he has to pull everybody along with him. And all the injuries that the Eagles have, especially on the offensive side of the ball, Carson Wentz is going to have to elevate his play in order to make things easier for those guys. Because when you don't have Deshaun Jackson in the lineup and you don't have Alshon Jeffrey in the lineup, it is going to be tougher to get production in the passing game. Now, good on the Eagles for having the Washington Redskins and being able to match up against them, a team that doesn't do very well defensively against running backs and tight ends. And you saw Carson Wentz have success against the Giants defense, throwing to his tight ends and his running backs. Boston Scott, a guy came out of nowhere, had a nice day. I think he had right around 70 yards receiving in that game. And then, of course, Carson was able to find Zach Ertz for a couple of scores, especially that late game one, to put them in position to win that game. But, I mean, this has to be a signature Carson Wentz game if for no other reason you recognize that the Eagles don't have any margin for error and they have to win every single football game.
Especially because the Eagles' defense, we don't think it because of the travesty in Miami, but in 5 of their last 6 games, they've allowed 20 points or fewer. Like, the defense is actually playing far better than it was early in the year. I'm not here to just bang on Carson Wentz, but this to me is an example that he and Doug Peterson have this in common. They have no idea what motivational buttons they're supposed to push, and they are not comfortable in the position they are in right now. Of course, Carson Wentz this week, the message should be, guys, I got us. I know we're banged up. I know folks are writing us off. Guess what? I'll take care of it. You do your job, and I will take care of the rest. I hate to reference LeBron, but this is a moment from in the series against the Warriors when they had the big comeback. What he told everyone after Game 5, after they got it to 3-2, was, if you guys just do your role, I will take care of everything else. And it's unfair to compare Carson Wentz to LeBron. I get it. But that is what the quarterback of the team needs to be, especially when, to your guys' point, you paid him to be that guy. You paid him to be your force multiplier and then some. And when you're coming off a game where he needed to play better.
Yeah.
I understand the final 17 minutes in overtime of that game, Carson was good. You had 3 points. 42 minutes into the game against the New York Giants. It's unacceptable. And so I don't think the Eagles' entirety of their problems, I don't even know if it's fair to say the majority of their problems are on their quarterback. I do think for a guy who's had issues, questions in the locker room, he doesn't yet know how to be that, quote, leader of men that guys such as Russell Wilson seem to come so naturally to. Dak Prescott seems to actually be quite good at that as well, and he's, to me, Carson's grasping in that regard in a game they have to have against Washington.
And it doesn't have to be a rah-rah kind of leader. You don't have to get in front of the mic up at the podium and say, this is how we're going to do it. It's on. Lamar leads, and he's not that vociferous kind of like leader, but he's got everyone in that locker room believing in him, and maybe part of that is because of what he's doing every day on Sunday. But if Carson Wentz is not doing that every Sunday, then he's got to be some semblance of a leader. He's got to show those guys that he's going to take this all on him and go out there and try to win games.
One way to lead your team is, and you're exactly right, is exactly what Lamar is doing. Go out there on the field and dominate. Go out there and be the best player on the field every time you have the football. And Carson Wentz has to understand how to do that for 4 quarters of a game. The Eagles team has been good coming back from behind. They've been good in the second half of games, but they have to be good for 4 quarters to be able to win with the lack of production they're getting from the wide receivers. When you look at the last 4 games, Carson Wentz has over 170 pass attempts. to me, that means you have to be the man. That means you have to be able to throw the ball down the field to win. That's what Doug Peterson is saying. Throw the football to win. Carson Wentz has to be able to understand that. He also has to be able to step into his role as the best person on the field, and he has to be able to win. That's his one thing he has to be able to do.
And he also has to clearly be the best quarterback on the field on Sunday.
Yeah.
He's going up against Dwayne Haskins, that Washington Redskins offense without Darius Geis. I mean, this is a situation where you know that Dwayne Haskins has the tendency to throw the other team the ball and turn the football over. So you have to be able to take advantage of those situations when your defense, if your defense is able to make them one-dimensional, and there's no reason to think that Eagles defense won't be able to stop that rushing attack for the Redskins with AP, I just feel like if you're going to put it all on, if their defense is putting it all on Dwayne Haskins, you have to make sure that you take advantage of the miscues from the young rookie quarterback. And Carson Wentz, he didn't look like the best quarterback on the field Monday night against that matchup with the Giants when they had Eli Manning as their starting quarterback. So it's a situation where I think Carson Wentz clearly has to be the best offensive player on the field, period.
1,000%. And even if it's false bravado, do that.
Yeah.
Even if deep down you are questioning yourself, you lie to everybody else. And because you are going a quarterback mismatch this much, I understand sometimes we make it too much about the quarterbacks. When it's Dwayne Haskins, well, I understand he's a rookie, but even by rookie standards, he's struggling.
Yes.
He has been really, really bad. You've got the worst starting quarterback in football right now against a guy who's supposed to be an MVP candidate year in, year out. Exude that level of confidence. I'm not the one that needs to carry the team. Everyone needs. That's not what the Eagles need to hear this week against this opponent.
Why do you think so many people, now that you see how successful he is, why do you think so many people missed on Lamar when he was coming out of school?
It's a complicated question, but it's also a simple question. There's a lot of factors, but it's also in part because people didn't want to believe what their eyes were telling them. I mean, this is a guy who in his final 2 years at Louisville threw for over 7,000 yards and over 55 touchdowns in a pro-style offense. Bobby Petrino runs one of the more, it's not the Saban offense, but it's a more pro-style offense than certainly what was run at Oregon under Chip Kelly and what a lot of the other offenses we see in college football. And it's because the narrative got away from Lamar, and he did not care to correct it. Lamar didn't do a lot of interviews. Lamar was not out in front of it. He wanted to let his play speak for itself. And so people either that had an agenda or a bias or just they just didn't want this to succeed in the NFL. We heard so much about can't get in contact with him. His mom's his agent. What does the average fan know what Super 8 means to Lamar and his family? My guess is no. It would have been a nice story to write. His Super 8 is the 8 values his mother has espoused to him since early age. God, prayer, faith, family, education, sacrifice, character, discipline. Even had it emblazoned on some I don't want to say uniforms, but some outfits they wore in the draft process. Does the average fan know that when Lamar Jackson was 8 years old, his dad died in a car crash and his grandmother died on the same day? And from that moment, it was him and his mom, and she took this type of role in his life, which is probably one of the reasons why he trusts his mom to be his agent, to be his manager, which he was knocked for, in addition to what I thought was the really unfair stuff of, can he communicate the play in the huddle? Are people going to be able to understand him as if English is not his first language? And so there's a lot of factors to it. And what we saw was a team with arguably the greatest general manager ever. Ozzie Newsome, I don't know that he is, but he's in the argument.
He's in the conversation.
He saw something from Lamar that the rest of the league did not want to see or was blinded to. When the rest of draft experts were trying to promote and always try to promote a Josh Allen or a Mitch Trubisky, saying, don't believe the tape, they're better than that. People were saying with Lamar, don't believe the tape, he's actually playing the wrong position. And now folks are running from it. Folks are pretending, no, that was just Bill Polian. It was not just Bill Polian. It was a whole lot of people on shows similar to this saying, maybe in 4 years, he could be a suitable NFL quarterback, and now the whole league has to adjust to him. And fortunately, the next Lamar Jackson-esque player probably won't have to go through quite as much.
There was a theory in the league that the only way you can be successful at the quarterback position is to be 6'4", 240, stand in the pocket, and deliver the ball down the field. That was a theory. And within that theory, the thought was, we'll have this guy for 10 years, 10 to 15 years, he's our franchise guy.
Sean Elway still subscribes to that.
Some teams still do, but they missed on the fact, and we've seen it this year with Baltimore, the advantage that you may have if you have an athletic quarterback, a guy that can run the football, a guy that can be the most dangerous and most productive guy on the field with the ball in his hands the most times in the game. They missed on that fact. The truth is that we may not get 10 years out of Lamar playing the way that he's playing now. It may be only 6, but it may be 6 of the most dominant years that we've seen from the quarterback position, being able to run, being able to throw. And when I watched Lamar develop between a guy from last year that couldn't throw a spiral at times to a guy that now is hitting wide open receivers down the field, tight ends down the field, understanding defenses, watching him say, you know what, I know what coverage this is. I know exactly when I need to throw the football every single play. Fitting the ball in tight windows yesterday, that's some of the biggest jumps from a rookie year to your second year that we've seen in any quarterback. And of course, he's dominating with his athletic ability. We saw that in college. I've been completely impressed with Lamar, but the thought process as guys in the NFL, talent evaluators has to change. The other thought process that has to change is that, you know what, sometimes black quarterbacks, they can be just as good as other quarterbacks in the NFL. That was a theory that wasn't...
And just as smart.
Just as smart as well, of course. And you know, just as productive, can win games and get it done, and can lead football teams. That has to be known as well, and Lamar has done a great job of it and been a great example of it.
Well, I think your last point is probably your best point in terms of being able to be a leader of men. The quarterback position by nature is a leadership position, and you're just wondering what it would look like with a player like Lamar Jackson. And so when you don't have a guy that fits conventional norms or a conventional style, then the NFL's tendency is to be dismissive of his ability, especially at the lower levels of sport. Nick, you talked about the passing yards at Louisville, and NFL talent evaluators would say, well, he's throwing in windows in college, throwing in windows in the National Football League are different. And that's true. But you're also talking about a guy that has the opportunity to fully dedicate himself to his craft as opposed to worrying about being a student athlete. So Lamar Jackson, there was nothing that we saw at the lower ranks, whether it was high school or college, that would suggest that he wasn't serious about playing the quarterback position. Even up until the combine when he said, I'm not running the 40-yard dash.
And he got criticized for that,
He got criticized for that, too, but he wanted to have his tape, his play on the field, speak for himself. And that's the situation where the Baltimore Ravens benefited of it, because you have an experienced GM that trusts what he saw, and then they built an offense around him with offensive coordinator Greg Roman. So this was a commitment by the Ravens organization in a couple of different ways, and now they're paying the dividends from that.
And that could also be why some teams were a little scared, because they were going to have to revamp an offense to build around him. You were going to have to change a little bit of the offense, which is what Greg Roman did, to make it work for him, and it worked perfectly for Lamar in that Baltimore setting. Would he be as successful in other, offenses? Maybe not.
But by the way, one of the great Don Draper lines, that's what the money's for. That's what the coaches are for. Is to take the talent and put it in the best position to succeed. The starting quarterback in Baltimore prior to Lamar Jackson was exactly the type that you talked about. 6'5", 235, statue in the pocket. And in a week, they changed it because they have competent coaches and they are not trying to square peg, round hole it.
And then they go 6-1 after starting out 4-5?
Exactly right. They went 6-1 before the playoff game. And, by the way, Lamar is going to at some point struggle. It might be in this year's playoffs. It might be next season. Patrick Mahomes went from 50 touchdowns to this year might not have 30, got hurt. And Mahomes, by the way, this year, nobody is saying, well, at least I haven't heard it, Patrick Mahomes not as good as we all thought. I think people still recognize this is one of, if not the very best quarterback in football. The folks right now who are the quietest about Lamar, because they were dead wrong, are waiting in the weeds for when these struggles come, for the ha-ha, I told you so moment, for the time, because he took a big shot last night on the record-breaking run,
that's right.
On the 5-yard run, when he gets hurt, as if Pocket quarterbacks don't get hurt. Right. As if Carson Wentz didn't have a near MVP in year 2 and hasn't yet reclaimed that status.
Well, he hurt his quad in the pocket. It's not like he hurt that quad originally.
Absolutely, and Cam's big injuries came in the pocket. Go ahead, Jenna, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, one of the biggest things that we also, and you pointed it out, Jenna, I think it's true. Offensive coordinators are old school guys. Coaches, I mean, many around the NFL, and we kind of seen a revolution of younger coaches these last couple of years that have the ability to come up with different plays and different philosophies. Greg Roman and that staff has done a great job of just getting Lamar activated, doing what he does best, getting the best athlete on the field with the ball. Well, just do whatever you do best. Do that one thing. Old school coaches aren't willing to change, and that square peg and round hole, those types of things, those are big time things in the NFL. It's been a copycat league. We've seen what's happening in college now. A lot of these quarterbacks that have looked up to Lamar that can do the same thing will now get that same opportunity because it's an advantage when you have only 4 days to be able to prepare for a guy that can do that.
Oh, 100%. It's next to impossible. And as a defender in the National Football League, I can tell you, when you're going up against this style of offense and a quarterback that can lead the running game, having a short week it's next to impossible to be effective in terms of limiting what they do. The Jets, the #1 run defense in the National Football League, got rung up for over 200 yards on the ground. But as far as Lamar Jackson goes, B-Dub, you said something. The coaches are resistant to going away from conventional norms, conventional prototypes. And Bill Parcells told me, he said, unless you remind me of a guy I've had success with, then I'm not going to draft you. I don't want you to be a part of my team. It takes somebody that's creative and forward-thinking in order to move off of that. And now the Ravens are getting the return on the investment that they made a couple of years ago, taking Lamar Jackson with that last pick in the first round.
And to your point, Ozzie Newsome was willing to do that. John Harbaugh was willing to do that. They were willing to change everything off of Flacco to him.
And the best coaches do that.
Right. But not all the coaches in the NFL are the best coaches.
Right. I mean, Andy Reid was not running the same offense with Alex Smith. He's running for Patrick Mahomes. It was dinks and dunks, and it immediately went downfield. You think the Matt Flynn offense in Seattle was what they were going to run with Russell Wilson? No, you adjust. If you know what you're doing, you adjust according to talent. And the Ravens have, and they are paying. The dividends are being paid right now.
And look how consistent he's been. He's been the MVP frontrunner almost from the first couple weeks of the season. That Miami game, we can't say the same about Russell Wilson right now. So it's this guy.
He's been unbelievable.
Here we go, a little drawing a blank.
Yep.
This weekend, there are a lot of lopsided matchups on paper in the NFL. Carson Wentz and the Eagles will try to avoid a letdown against Washington. Chris Canny, the team that should be on upset alert the most is blank.
Jenna, it's got to be the Green Bay Packers for me. I mean, this was a close game between them and the Chicago Bears in Week 1. They ended up winning it 10-3, but the Packers haven't played good football. It's been a while since their last impressive win. I could go back to Week 8 in Arrowhead, but I mean, the Bears have won 4 out of the last 5, and Mitch Trubisky hasn't been awful. So in a game where the Bears have to have it, the Packers need to be careful, especially if they want to hang on to that 2 seed in the NFC.
I'm going Packers as well. You're right. The Bears have to have this game, so they're going to come out and play hard. That defense is nasty. But if you go back to Week 1 in that first week's game, this game was even. The Green Bay Packers, who weren't really developed offensively yet.
They hit one shot.
Yeah, they had that one shot down the field to Valdez-Scantling, and that was it early on in that football game. Things started to roll a little bit. The Packers have to be alert this week.
All right, you guys are both wrong because Green Bay -4 is my best bet of the weekend.
Wow.
They've got the biggest financial investment in it, so I want to disregard everything you guys just said. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles because given the way they've played, even against Washington, you can't. They lost to Miami. They could have lost to the Giants. Like, those are teams on par with Washington. So Philadelphia is, to me, the team that should be on upset alert, especially if they might be looking ahead a bit to the critical Week 16 matchup at home against the Cowboys that should decide that division.
All right. Last night, Lamar not only broke Michael Vick's rushing record, he also tied Vinny Testaverde for the most touchdown passes in franchise history with 33. So Canny, the quarterback that'll finish the season with the most passing touchdowns, is blank.
I'm going to go with Russell Wilson just because I don't think Lamar Jackson is going to play Week 17. They can lock up the #1 seed with the win against Cleveland next week. So I'm going with Russell Wilson because they're going to have to win out in order to get to where they want to be, win their division, and hopefully have a chance at a bye. I think that has to start with Russell Wilson. At 26 touchdown passes right now, he's got the Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals coming up. So those are stat games. We'll see what happens against the 49ers. But I'm going with Russell Wilson.
I'm going Jameis Winston. I mean, all he does is throw touchdowns and interceptions. Yeah, so he does a little bit of both. I just love the way he throws the ball down the field. He'll throw it deep. He'll give his team an opportunity to catch the ball down the field. But his defense isn't good enough. They're always coming from behind. They're going to throw the football all the time. Jameis Winston, easy answer.
Yeah, Jameis has a chance to have the first 30-30 season in NFL history. 30 touchdowns, 30 picks. In fact, I think he's on pace for it. I'm going to go with the guy who's right now clear of the field by 7, Lamar Jackson. I understand your point, which is he might only play 15 games to the other guy's 16 games. I think the 5 last night gave him enough of a cushion, and the Cleveland game is going to be played with a sense of urgency for Baltimore, A, because they lost to him, but B, that is what would lock up the 1 seed. So I expect Lamar to have a big game against Cleveland. If he has 3 touchdowns in that game, 36. Is anyone going to get there from 26 where Jameis and Russell are? I say no, so I think Lamar is going to hold on to the title barely, but I think he's going to do it.
Jameis has Detroit, Houston, and Atlanta left.
But that does feel like 12 touchdowns, 11 picks. That does feel like it.
Feels good.
Double.
Let's talk about the Ravens again. They improved to 12-2 with that dominant win over the Jets last night. That's the best record in the NFL. But Kenny, the team with the best chance of beating the Ravens in the playoffs is blank.
Jenna, I'm going to go with my Super Bowl pick out of the NFC, the Green Bay Packers, just because I think the Ravens are head and shoulders above everybody else in the AFC. And the Green Bay Packers do have one of those offenses that if they can get up early, they can put a lot of pressure on that Baltimore Ravens team. And Lamar Jackson and offense force them to have to throw the football. I think that's when it becomes advantage to the opposing defense, when that offense isn't able to have balance. So I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers.
Real quick, before you answer, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
If that's the Super Bowl matchup and the Packers win the coin toss, do they defer or they say, give me the ball?
You got to take the ball. You got to take the ball.
Take the ball and try to set the tone?
Yeah. I'm going to San Francisco 49ers. They played the Ravens tough a couple weeks ago. I think they have the ability to run the football and to keep the ball away from the Ravens offense. Last night I saw something in that Ravens defense, and I don't know how amped they were for that football game, but Le'Veon Bell had a pretty good game running the football down the throat. We know the San Francisco 49ers can do that. Defensively, I think they have the ability to figure out what's going on at least a little bit with Lamar Jackson. They are the best team that has the ability and skill set to beat the Ravens.
There's only one team in the NFL with a winning record against Lamar Jackson. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 2-0 against him. I think the Chiefs are I think this is going to be your AFC Championship game. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and I like the Chiefs' chances. Baltimore's the best team in football right now, but as far as a team that A, can pull on what they've done in the past against this team, and B, follow the same formula you're talking about with the Packers. Win the coin toss, take the ball, try to get up, make it to where you get them out of their power running game where they have dominated everyone. I'm going to say Kansas City.
That would be a great game.
It's been great games the first 2 times they've played. They've been great games.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern.